AI is getting so good now, people are using it to actually complete games. But did you know AI can actually make you a better gamer? Well, big thank you to Acer and AMD, the sponsor of today's video, because they have sent out the Acer Nitro 17 AN17-42, an absolutely awesome little unit that takes control of AI to make you a much better gamer. Well, kinda. How? Let's talk about it. So first of all, let's talk about the actual hardware, shall we? Now, you can get this in a number of different makeups. The one that Acer and AMD were kind enough to send me, it has the AMD Ryzen 7 8845HS CPU. It has a 4070, 32GB of GDDR5 RAM, and it also comes with a 1TB NVMe SSD as standard. It does run Windows 11 as well. So straight off the bat, hardware-wise, it's pretty good for pretty much whatever you want to do, whether it's gaming, creative work, or even just as a general little runaround. But using the power of AI, there are actually a number of changes that this little machine has that sets it apart from some of the others. The first one we're going to talk about is actually a much better feature than you might imagine, the cooling. So straight off the bat, okay, all PCs, laptops, they will adjust the fan speed by default just to try and keep things running cool when you are actually using a lot more power. However, the Acer Nitro 17 does things a little bit differently, okay? So there are quite a few different profile modes that the laptop has, and it will automatically balance between them. Now, you can run it completely silent, which is the mode it's on right now. And by the way, this is the Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail benchmark running at 1440p maximum settings, and you can't hear it right now. It's like, we have got a little fan on in the background just because it's like 30 degrees today. It's really, really hot, okay? But the laptop itself, silent. The silent mode absolutely works wonders. And what really helps with that, okay, is the fact that it does have dual fan cooling, which means it has a fan for the CPU and a fan for the GPU. The heat pipes are sort of shared between them, of course. It has dual intakes, so it has intakes on both sides. And then it also has a quad exhaust. But one of the other things that really, really helps the cooling on this side is actually going to be that it uses liquid metal on the CPU instead of thermal paste, which obviously means it can transfer a lot more heat a lot more efficiently. But then we also have the actual modes for performance. So let's say, for example, this is just a completely made up number. Let's say the actual wattage is 230, okay? If you are just doing something like, say, an Excel spreadsheet, you aren't going to need, you know, all the power from the GPU. What it's actually going to do is it's actually going to take a little bit of the power that should be on the GPU and it's going to put it on the CPU, just so you've got that little more intensive power for, you know, maybe a heavy workload. But if you want to, say, do some gaming, then it's going to allocate more power to the GPU, and it's going to balance based on what you are actually doing at the time. And that also goes for creative works like Adobe Premiere and so on and so forth. So straight off the bat, it does use DLSS to actually really boost the frame rate, which is obviously amazing, especially for a laptop, because that allows you to get the really high value refresh rates without having to compromise on anything like the graphical fidelity. And of course, with the AMD 8845HS processor, you've got more than enough power coming from the processor for any and all gaming requirements. And of course, with the power management being adjusted automatically on the fly for you, with the cooling automatically being adjusted on the fly as well, there is literally nothing you have to do. But that's obviously from a gaming side of things, okay? Obviously, in this day and age, I mean, you're watching me right now, we live in a world full of influencers. So this is actually also really good at content creation, and of course it also leverages into the AI side of things on that front as well. So straight off the bat, okay, it does feature Windows Copilot as part of Windows 11, which is obviously, you know, very similar to things like ChatGPT. So you can ask it questions for, you know, just any general purpose, like, oh, how do you do this on Excel, or so on and so forth, or, oh, create me an image, and it will go ahead and do that for you. But likewise, it also features AI performance boosts for the Adobe Premiere collection. So things like Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, and stuff like that, you are also going to be getting a major boost in performance on those platforms. It's going to allocate power to the necessary system resources just to get the boost going a little bit further. And of course, I do have benchmark results for that as well, both for 1080p, 1440p, and 4K video editing. But let's talk about some of the other specs, okay? So, as I mentioned, it does have the AMD Ryzen 7 8845HS CPU. It's got a 4070, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and a 1TB SSD. So with these, the CPU does have a 3.3 base clock, and then it can boost all the way up to 5.1 as well. It's an 8-core CPU with 16 threads. So plenty of cores, plenty of threads for any sort of heavy workload that you want, whether you're just playing something like Final Fantasy 3, you know, just a nice little pixel remaster, or you're playing the latest AAAs. And don't worry, we are going to get onto actual frame rate scores very, very soon. In terms of screen display, it's a 17.3-inch laptop. It is an IPS panel, so it has very, very bright, vivid colors, as it does feature a 100% DCI P3 color gamut, which is absolutely incredible. It's a 1440p display panel, so 25 by 60 by 1440, and it has a 165 Hz refresh rate. More than enough for any sort of gaming needs. And of course, it also features a nice comfort matte finish, which also helps to reduce the glare that you actually get off the screen. So for example, right now, can you see any glare on it? We have light pretty much all around us in the room, and obviously it's quite light outside, but from any angle, you can actually get almost a near reflection-free viewing experience. Meaning if you want to play this on the train, in a coffee shop, or so on and so forth, it's great. Okay, so right now I have tested 15 games on this laptop, and what we've done, okay, we have done a 1080p profile and we've done a 1440p profile, both with DLSS on and also off. So I'm not going to read through all of them because that's a lot of results. However, we are going to show a graph on screen right now. So as you can see, for Cyberpunk 2077 on Ultra with ray tracing enabled, for 1080p and 1440p, we scored 60 and 45 FPS respectively. That is with DLSS off, however. With them on, you get 85 and 70 FPS respectively. More than absolutely playable. Red Dead Redemption 2, again, ultra settings. Everything is over 60 FPS, except for 1440p with no DLSS. However, that still clocks in at 55 FPS. Absolutely very, very playable. And then let's say you're in the mood for some Witcher or stuff like that. Again, Ultra with ray tracing enabled. At 1080p, you get 70 FPS and 95 FPS with DLSS. 1440p, you get 55 and 80 FPS respectively, giving you a very, very smooth gaming experience with maximum quality settings. But if you're more into, you know, your shooters like Valorant, then you're absolutely going to have absolutely no issues with this, as you're going to be clocking in a nice 220 FPS for 1080, and at 1440 you're going to end up with a nice 180 to 200. Absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal gaming result. Okay, so enough now about the actual gaming. Obviously, gaming is not a huge part of everybody's life, but this is marketed at a lot more than just gamers. Instead, okay, this also has a very, very wide use in creativity. And in fact, I use this myself for creative purposes. Obviously, I, edit at my full-time job. I record at my full-time job. This now is very nearly a desktop replacement for me. So, let's take a look at one of the biggest and most important things that impact the creative side. Video rendering results. Now, just as a point of caution, okay, there were 3 programs that were used to test for this. We used Sony Vegas Pro, we used Adobe Premiere Pro, and we used DaVinci Resolve. We used standard presets across all 3 for 1080p, 1440, and 4K. We did have some just general overlays, you know, typical video overlays in the video profile. However, the exact video was identical across all 3 samples. So, for 1080p, on Adobe Premiere, it took 2 minutes 30 seconds for a 10-minute video. For DaVinci Resolve, it was 2 minutes 45, and Sony Vegas was 2 minutes 20. So not bad. For a 10-minute video, you're basically looking at between 2.5 to 3 minutes for a video render. And temperature-wise, we didn't really get above the 80 to 70 degree mark. 80 degrees on the CPU, 70 on the GPU. Very, very manageable temperatures. For 1440, again, with Adobe Premiere Pro, that was 5 minutes 10 seconds. DaVinci was 5 minutes 30, and Sony Vegas was just under 5 minutes. Again, temperatures a little bit higher, with just 1 or 2 degrees difference. That could just be, you know, the environmental controls. So I'm not going to say anything too much about that. Could very well be a little bit higher, though, just because of obviously the higher resolution. And then we have 4K. So with 4K, okay, we have Adobe Premiere Pro coming in at 10 minutes and 45 seconds, DaVinci Resolve at 11 minutes and 15, and then Sony Vegas Pro at 9 minutes and 50 seconds. And this is where the CPU and the GPU both did get quite a bit hotter, reaching 87 degrees and 73 degrees respectively. Now, obviously, it's a laptop, okay, so temperature-wise, there is always going to be a good increase. You know, you are typically looking on gaming or the creative side to between 60 and 80 degrees, but for a laptop, that is perfectly normal, and there is absolutely nothing to worry about on that front. Maybe you wouldn't have it on your knee for, you know, an hour straight in those conditions, but as long as you've got like a nice little table or something like that in front of you, then you have absolutely no issues. But obviously, we've gone through the system specs, the performance, but we haven't actually gone through the laptop itself. So let's very quickly do that, shall we? Okay, so we have a nice 4-zone backlit keyboard. We have the 17.3-inch display, and of course the keyboard is also a full-size keyboard as well. We have a semi-large trackpad, which I do admit, I think it's in a little bit of an awkward space, because I have actually hit it a few times by accident when I've been typing. Maybe a little more over to the side would have been a little bit better, but hey, you can't win them all. Other than that, if we actually have a look at the first side, we have 2 USB 3.2 ports. These are 10 gig ports. We have a Kensington lock just on the side as well. On the other side, we have a USB 2 port. We have an SD card reader. We have a dual audio jacks. This is audio in and audio out. And then we have a full-size Ethernet port as well, which we just have to lower the little protective bit on the side for. On the back of the machine, we have a lovely little dual USB 3.2 USB Type-Cs. These are both also at 10 gig ports. We have a full-size HDMI 2.1 port, and then we also have the DC in port. And then, if we actually look at upgradability and repairability, this is actually where Acer and AMD have done really well. So obviously, this machine comes with a 1TB SSD as standard. Now, for me, 1TB is most definitely not really enough, both for, you know, just 4K footage, 1440p footage, and also all my different games. So I wanted to install an extra NVMe slot. So all you need to do that is you just take the screws out of the bottom. There are none hidden behind that silly little warranty tape. And then the bottom basically just slides off. You have easy access to the RAM, you have easy access to the NVMe drives, and you also have easy access to the Wi-Fi 6E chip as well. So you can easily replace that if anything happens to it. There is basically no warranty void stickers. You have easy access to all the wires, all the components, and so on and so forth. So again, if you want to upgrade, it is incredibly easy to do so. There are 2 NVMe drive slots, and there are 2 RAM slots. So, in conclusion, should you buy it? Well, I'm going to leave that one up to you, because at the end of the day, everybody is going to have a different caseload that they need different spec machines for. Obviously, the gaming and the creative performance is truly amazing, especially for the price point, as it comes in at 1,700 GBP, so Great British Pounds, which does make it a little bit more on the pricier side. It's a little bit higher than the mid-range laptops, but it's not quite at the high-end laptop. However, it does deliver amazing, amazing hardware for that price point. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have a link down below in the description for if you want to check this machine out yourself. But of course, let me know down below in the description, in the comments, what you think about this machine. As always, though, everybody, thanks for watching, and a huge, huge thank you to Acer and AMD for sponsoring this video. Until next time, though, everybody, I'll see you soon.